Supply chains are in chaos for the second time in 5 years.
I was calling it like a civilizational collapse moment.
So today I'm interviewing Ryan Petersen, founder and CEO of Flexport from their offices in downtown San Francisco. Flexport is the world's most valuable tech company in and around supply chain, but it was not obviously a great opportunity when they first started. In 2013, when Ryan was on stage with Paul Graham at YC, Paul Graham had to ask him this.
What does a customs brokerage do?
Today, YC sees Flexport as one of the most important companies they've ever backed. And because every container ship entering the U.S. now carries at least one container of Flexport cargo, they have a unique lens into what's going on in the entire supply chain. The first time we had supply chain chaos during COVID, it was actually a huge opportunity for the company.
Pandemic, really bad time for supply chain, really good time for Flexport, the business, in terms of revenues going up to $4 billion, raising large rounds at high prices.
They were valued at over $8 billion, revenue peaked at over $4 billion, and it propelled the company into the public eye. Ryan did things like a tour of the port of LA. Things changed though post-pandemic. Revenue fell, a new CEO didn't work out.
Yeah, what's that Warren Buffett quote? Like, you don't know who's swimming naked till the tide goes out. And we weren't swimming naked, but definitely the growth and the success could cover up a lot of problems, and especially operational.
NPS took a hit, and so Ryan actually had to come in and do a reboot.
Because we had to do some hardcore stuff.
And now the current administration has provoked a trade war, which has put both its customers and the company under pressure. And so today what we're going to cover is what's happening in global trade, why Ryan thought it was a good idea to start this business in the first place, how did he architect a turnaround, how has Flexport helped its customers approach all of the recent volatility, and as a fintech investor, I also have to ask about Flexport Capital and why that is one of the more exciting growth areas for the company. And we're even going to get into founder advice for how founders can navigate both scale and a little bit of chaos. Should be a very fun conversation. Look forward to diving in.
Ryan, great to have you here.
Yeah, nice to meet you, man.
All right, so current administration, they provoked a trade war. I want to dig into that, how Flexport has responded. But before that, I want to go all the way back, talk about kind of the original thing that set you off on this journey. So you were on stage with Paul Graham 2013, going through YC. You get up on stage and he asks you, what is a custom broker? So what is it, and like, why did you think it was a good idea to start a business in this space?
Yeah, so Flexport started as a customs brokerage. What is a customs broker? You can think, well, you help companies clear their goods through U.S. Customs, filing all the paperwork that's needed and paying those taxes. And on that paperwork, what is required? Well, the government wants to know sort of three things about any product. It's valuation, its classification, what kind of product is this, and its country of origin. And all three of those are surprisingly difficult to calculate for any given product. They're not, it's actually not really black and white. It is the law, it's regulations. And therefore, the same reason you need lawyers, you need customs brokers. You're allowed to represent yourself in front of U.S. Customs and just file this. You don't need a customs broker. Yeah. Same way you can defend yourself in a court of law. It's probably a bad idea. You should hire a professional who knows what they're doing. And that's what customs brokerage does. So a lot of data involved in that. Yeah. Obviously, transmitting data to the government, collecting the right data.
Therefore, it previously had an import-export business and run a data business around import-export.
Yeah, so before I started Flexport, I ran a data business called importgenius.com. We sell data on imports and exports. And that business is still a really nice company, still exists, still does great work. Before that, I, with my older brother, had a series of import-export businesses. KPX was the main brand, Kenko, Petersen, X to make it sound cool. Yeah, so that's how I got exposed to the problems of Flexport and customs brokerage and freight forwarding. As I used to be a customer, we were buying goods from Asia mostly and selling them on the internet. So yeah, customs brokerage, that's what it does. And you need data. Therefore, you need databases and technology. And there's and when we got into the space, there was no one doing that, like from a tech first standpoint. I mean, maybe that's overstated, but I don't mean to dunk on other people out there trying things, but the technology state of this industry is not good.
We'll probably throw up the product map today, but if you go up and pull up all of your products, you've got like the custom brokerage thing, and now you do a lot more, which we can dive into later. One thing I also want to touch on, though, is like the slight regulatory change that unlocked this, something we think a lot about in fintech and highly regulated industries like supply chain. Like sometimes little things that no one's paying attention to makes it possible to do what you do. So I think something changed in 2007, a little bit of regulation.
Yeah, so I think it was 2007, the U.S. government changed the regulations to allow electronic filing of customs entries. So prior to that, a customs brokerage had to have an office and a license in each port or airport in the United States, sort of like nearby the port. or the airport. That really meant the internet couldn't be useful. I mean, if you had to you couldn't do a startup if you had to launch in 50 offices. That's not a startup by definition. And if you're just launching in one office, like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like an internet company if you can only clear goods at the port of Oakland. Like, so that changed in 2007. I started working on Flexport in 2008. Shortly thereafter, as I learned about that rule change that was going to allow for the internet to change this industry.
No, I think like today we have regulatory changes like your TNSEC for stablecoins and other stuff. We don't like these things can lead to very interesting new business opportunities down the road. What I also love about the interview with Paul Graham is like, he's like, what is this thing at all? And today I feel like a lot of people are excited about supply chain tech, and especially because of the work that Flexport has done. But even after that, for like 6-7 years, you guys were pretty quiet. And then Flexport blew up during the pandemic. So maybe talk briefly about kind of what led to a lot of interest in Flexport during that era.
Yeah, we I don't know, we weren't trying to be quiet. We were working hard trying to be famous. But yeah, nobody really cared about logistics and supply chain that much. The pandemic really brought it front and center. We sort of took this for granted that you could just ship things around the world and they'll arrive. People still probably do too much. But during the pandemic, that stopped being true. You, as a brand, as a company, you would try to ship something, even as a freight forwarder, you would try to ship something, and it was taking 120 days to ship cargo from China to the U.S. The ship only takes 15 days to cross the ocean. So you can see how much waste and just brokenness there was. And there was just a huge backlog at the ports, kind of famously, all this, you would see ships lined up waiting to clear. At one point, over 100 ships at a time were waiting off the coast of LA, Long Beach. So there was that piece of just like exploring that, helping people understand what was happening and why. That gave us a higher profile. The other big one was the hospital networks ran out of masks and PPE. And
This one is flexport.org, I think.
Well, we had flexport.org since 2017. Maybe even a little earlier than that. Flexport.org is our group that does like humanitarian logistics. We mostly have shipped internationally historically. So like refugee camps, earthquakes, disasters, war zones, we work with a lot of great nonprofits and some government agencies to deliver cargo to people in need. COVID was the first time, actually, maybe not the first time, but it was the first high profile time where we were like, oh, we got to work here in the United States. And it was specifically around hospitals, and hospitals have an interesting problem. Normally in their logistics supply chain, hospitals just rely on distributors, and the distributor will bring the medical equipment, the PPE, to their loading dock. Like, they're not involved upstream in the logistics. It just shows up. And when that stopped happening, it was I was calling it like a civilizational collapse moment. I mean, if the doctors don't show up for work, it all stops. The world can get real crazy real fast. And they didn't have masks. And we saw the problem was really wasn't the ocean freight so much, because it was the air freight. In 50% of the world's air freight flies in the belly of passenger planes. 50% flies on cargo planes like that one, but 50% fly in the bellies. And those passenger planes all stopped flying to Asia, stopped flying generally during the pandemic, in the early days especially. And so there was masks in China available, but couldn't get moved over. And the hospitals are really well connected. Like here in SF, we have UCSF, Mark Benioff. I don't know if he's on the board, but he's their major donor. And he's friends with Jack Ma in China. So he's like, yo, I got a bunch of masks. We want to ship them. And that was our first partner, but we rapidly scaled to pretty much all the hospitals in the U.S. for those first 3 months of the pandemic. Were supplied by flexport.org. We shipped 500 million masks. And the way we did it was we went to those same passenger planes that were grounded, and we called the airlines and we're like, hey, can we use your planes? We need to go get masks for the hospitals. And Delta especially, Atlas Airlines, a bunch of these, United Airlines, they all just gave us planes. Not for free, but like we had to pay for the fuel only. And even that they subsidized. So we flew 88 planes to China, grabbed masks, stuffed them in the overhead compartments, in the seats, in the belly. And it was a couple of hospitals were within 1 day of running out of masks when our arrival started coming.
That's super cool. I feel like you and Flexport at the time were someone I've paid attention to episodically, but then all of a sudden it's like there's a lot of noise and uncertainty was going on in supply chain. And you guys have blends into it. So it's like, what's going on? Go check out what Flexport is saying.
Yeah, we're lucky. I mean, a lot of companies would like to have a .org arm that does like humanitarian or pro bono type work. Like Salesforce does this kind of famously, but like what can they do? Give you some CRM software? Like, it's not going to save the world. I mean, we're not saving the world, but I do think we can save lives. We think that you can have a massive impact. Or like .org in the early days of the Ukraine war, we shipped 13 ambulances to downtown Kiev for a nonprofit or agency, and it was like a crazy high ROI philanthropy because we got someone to donate the ambulances, and then we went to one of our investors and asked him, "Hey, will you pay for the trucking?"
Yeah.
And at first, I was like, "How are we going to get trucking into this war zone?" Well, it turns out half the truckers in Europe are Ukrainian, and they were thrilled to bring trucks, the ambulances.
Yeah.
They were thrilled. It was like, oh, all right. I mean, it was the easiest project ever. Like, if someone else, they paid for it. And then this investor, he donated $30,000. So we talk about ROI of philanthropy dollars, like $30,000, you get to take credit for delivering 13 ambulances into a war zone. Like, so we really believe in that model.
Yeah. And pandemic, really bad time for supply chain, really good time for Flexport, the business, in terms of revenues going up to $4 billion, raising large rounds at high prices. Post-pandemic, though, things kind of changed and you had to come and do a turnaround. So maybe talk through what happened and what you did when you came back as CEO.
Yeah, what's that Warren Buffett quote? Like, you don't know who's swimming naked till the tide goes out. And we weren't swimming naked, but definitely the growth and the success could cover up a lot of problems, and especially operational problems. We pretty scaled. We probably get victims of our own success in some ways of scaling too fast. Headcount wise, operational procedures weren't where they needed to be.
1,000 employees, 26 offices. I think you're still.
Well, at one point we were 3,400 employees, so we've gotten much leaner despite growing through that. But yeah, we overhired. We felt it was the timelines are a little. Let's see, it was 2023. The
mercifully
slate markets that we kind of were double whammy. Like both of our kind of markets that are really relevant to Flexport, the freight market and the capital markets, both went into like crazy decline at the same time. And we had a really strong balance sheet, almost $2 billion in cash. And so we just felt like, all right, let's be the contrarians and we'll lean into this. And we read the room the wrong way and ended up hiring like 900 engineers in 12 months. So we burned too much money. Our quality wasn't where it needed to be.
I know your NPS went from, high to like low teens.
Yeah. We're back to where we were. So it was a little ugly. I actually brought in a COO. Well, I brought in a CEO. I tried to bring in a COO. Ended up feeling like the guy would be a better CEO than me. Became the chairman of the board. It didn't work out for a lot of reasons, but ultimately I think we just made some bad bets together, and then very quickly became clear, like, oh, this company is a kind of turnaround mode, and only the founder knows the company. Sort of, as a founder, you're fused at birth with the company, like you know it intimately. You should be totally in the details, and everybody knows that you're here. Like no matter what happens, I'm still going to be here. So there's some aspects of that turnaround that like only I could do, because we had to do some hardcore stuff. We shrunk the size of the team dramatically, got way more focused on a smaller number of things, really, really leaned into the quality, did like a reorg around quality for our customers.
You spent like, when you first came back, it was like 100 customers in a week, 2 weeks.
It was just massive blitz. I mean, I try to talk to, so far this year, I've met 300 customers in person, and that doesn't count all the video calls and webinars and whatever else. But, yeah, so I mean the results were pretty good. We improved our EBIT our earnings by about $800 million. So like one of the epic turnarounds, our NPS score went from, I think it got so low they stopped measuring it, to now we're back in the 70s. Back in like the NPS might be too high. Maybe we need to be less nice to our customer. There's prices out of that. We're not doing that, but
no customers will watch this.
NPS is not the best metric. I mean, actually, NPS is a terrific metric, but it's a metric that your customers do not care about. You're asking your customer, will you refer me to a friend? Well, the customer doesn't care about that. They care about like what's your on-time performance, your price versus the index, your responsiveness, like a bunch of other stuff. So it's not our core metric, but it's a good output metric.
Yeah, I know some people, the more you focus on a metric, people will manage it and game it. So you tell people organization, hey, NPS go up, and people will be like, hey, customer, can you like this?
Could be,
Well, one thing I want to talk about, because there's, I think, this constant tension in fintech, in supply chain, where your product naturally interacts with lots of other products. And so you often have this question like, hey, should I burn more and build more product, or should I focus on like my core competencies, be best in class? So like end to end versus best in class. I mean, in supply chain, end to end is massive. So I'm curious how you dealt with that trade-off when you came back and focused business. I think you sold Convoy, for instance, recently, being one example of trimming something.
Yeah. It's very dangerous to listen to generic advice and even specific advice from an expert. Founders need to know their business much better than anybody else. Like early days when I was starting Import Genius, I asked this sort of eminent founder for some advice, and I disagreed with what he did. I did the exact opposite, and it led to all of our success. So let's start with that caveat. The world has changed a lot too since I was starting out building Flexport. I mean, that last decade, the capital markets were so crazy in rewarding growth at all costs that they really, when we were talking to investors, they really didn't care that much about unit economics or profitability, but not even unit economics. They were just like, show me the top line growth, and therefore like do more, be more aggressive, build more, take on more stuff was like kind of always the right answer. And it's probably not true at all anymore. And you got to be way more, run a much better business now and be way more diligent on your unit economics and your burn rate than we did.
You guys are working to get to profitability. Some of the recent turbulence has delayed that a little bit.
We've made massive strides. As I was saying, on profitability, we'll be nicely profitable next year, and talk about return on invested capital. Maybe that's the place actually, is return on invested capital is like the framework to look through. Like, is this going to generate cash, and on what timeline if you go take something on? There's no question that focus is the one of the most important recipes for velocity. And at the end of the day, velocity is everything. In business, velocity is, if you remember your physics class, it's different than speed.
Yeah.
It has a vector. You have to go the right direction really fast. And if you've got a bunch of people pulling in different directions, then it's like literally that boat.
Maybe just an example like the Convoy example. Like, what was the logic? I mean, part of the logic was you bought it at a good price and someone's going to pay more for it.
Yeah. Now, that's like focus valuable, but we kind of ignored that dogma and said, well, we're going to listen to our customers and do what they want us to do. So Convoy is a trucking startup that we acquired. Trucking is very much a part of what we do and adjacent to what we do.
Similarly valued off of revenue, super high, like $4 billion at one point, and then they were acquired for much, much better.
Their peak valuation was $3.8 billion, and we bought. We didn't buy the company; we bought the assets, the IP, and the technology for $16 million. So yeah, it was like kind of the price was too good to be true, and it was. We knew the tech team, we knew the tech stack and the team and the product pretty well, so we felt really comfortable buying with that buy. But when Convoy also became. We recently sold it, and when we sold, and we made a really great profit. It's been reported in the press, and we haven't argued with those numbers. But
$250 million is what they said in the press.
That's what they said. So but we kept the trucking brokerage. Actually, a lot of people didn't notice that. So we still have a truck brokerage. What we sold was the technology platform that allowed other brokers to connect to the driver network that they'd built. And so we still, now it's like more focus on our core customers, because like our core customer is not a truck brokerage.
Yeah.
It's an importer and exporter and a company with cargo to ship. Yeah. So we, in order to make Convoy
those truckers are going to be frustrated if you're also competing with them.
The brokers were going to be, it was forcing us not to invest in offering truck brokerage because we don't want to compete with these customers, with these brokers. But more importantly, for its own success, it needed the volume of brokers. We didn't have enough volume to get all those drivers. We have 400,000 drivers with the mobile app. We didn't have enough volume to make, as Flexport, the truck brokerage, enough to make them want to open the app and come online and bid on loads and match and drive them. So we looked at it and said, hey, collectively,
Uber for trucking and supply and demand, but you're only so much.
Well, Convoy was literally arch rivals with Uber Freight, Uber for trucking. But Uber, I think you'll find didn't have enough demand for all the drivers you'd like to have. You want to get more of a flywheel going than that. And so that's where the strategy became, hey, let's get all the brokers in the world to come on. Collectively, they'll have more volume, way more volume than Uber Freight, or any of the big brokers alone, by definition. And then that would get all the drivers to want to come on board, and you get that flywheel going. So it's a great business model, but it was like, wait, this is a big distraction from our core customer. That's actually not normal. It was sort of like this opportunity of the investment that we saw to buy the thing. Like the actual problem we have is like, should Flexport even be in truck brokerage, or should we focus on international freight? Why are we in international freight? Shouldn't we just focus on custom?
I feel like the number one rule in startups is like talk to your customers, but sometimes it's like maybe not. Not a good rule is listen to your investors.
Yeah,
that was definitely not good. Just grow top line. Don't worry about unit economics. So really, it's like they're all these complicated.
It's really hard. It requires a huge amount of judgment. I think I'm probably in the wrong person to listen to, because I just like always biased towards like, just I'm an entrepreneur. I want to launch new things. Yeah, doing the same thing over and over again kind of bores me. I've always got a new product idea that I'm pushing the team on. You got to surround yourself with really smart people who you trust and trust you, and will tell you, Ryan, stop. Yeah, like we need to focus. No new products, no new offerings. Let's focus.
Let's talk about existing products too, because I think one thing that's obvious is you have a product and it's working. Keep doing it. So we like to say in the fintech community, every company is a fintech company, and now Flexport Capital has been doing pretty well. So what's been the story of how it started, where it is now, and why? It's a lending business fundamentally, but you've got kind of the core things that a lot of lending businesses don't have in order to be able to make it work for you.
Yeah. So Flexport Capital is a good example of like, we launched that in, I want to say 2016 or so. We've been doing it for almost a decade. 17 maybe, yeah. Almost 8 or 10 years. It's at its core, like inventory is cash. It's a form of capital that's flowing. It is capital, and it's cash that's been transformed into another form for a period of time, and come back to cash, hopefully for more cash than you bought it for at the end. And you will often, in that business, you will almost always have a working capital problem that you're buying the stuff before you're getting paid for it.
And a lot of people's margins in supply chain are like 2%. So if something sits there for 30 days versus 15 days versus 90 days, your cold margin can just evaporate.
Yeah, it could be, but also it depends. I mean, if that's the case, then you probably need a better business. But a lot of these companies, like that might be true on the EBIT line, but if you're an apparel company, for example, you're not, you sell this, I don't know what we call it.
I do a lot of
call this $100 and the COGS is like 12 or something. I mean, there's some good margin actually at the gross profit level.
Yeah.
Not like this super profitable apparel companies. It's a tough business, very competitive, et cetera. But the gross profit level is not bad. And like, I'll give you an example of the Flexport Capital. I think the first 10 customers, one of them was selling accessories to like T-Mobile, like cables and stuff like that. And they got a PO from T-Mobile for $200,000, and their COGS to buy the stuff was, call it $80,000 or something, but they didn't have the $80,000 to go buy the goods. So that company is they're not sensitive to your interest rate. Yeah. They just need to buy this thing, and if they sell it, they're going to flip it and make a bunch of money. So if you charge them 10%, that would be $8,000. Yeah. You charge them 20%, it'd be $16,000. Like, who cares? You're going to make $120K on this deal as soon as you get it across the line. So that would be an example of like supply chain finance that we started out in. And, all fintech companies, I'm certainly no fintech expert, but I think that the fintech, you basically have like you need to have like
specifically lending. Yeah.
Lending. You need a competitive advantage in like one of 4 things. And it's either like underwriting, like who should you lend to? It's customer acquisition, it's collections. Yeah. If they don't pay you, what are you going to do? And then it's cost of capital. I think those are probably the 4 elements of it. You should have.
First 2 should be obvious for people. One is like you already have the customers and you have their data. I think the collections piece, though. So that's huge. Those are like probably the 2 most important things.
Yeah.
Something that's a little bit unique is the collections piece.
Collections piece is what I think makes us very unique. I mean, the first 2, even the underwriting piece, we have their customs data, so we know their margins and their growth rates, and we're seeing a lot about companies. We can
really good
kind of select across our customer base and look for people who we think would be a good fit for it, for us and for them. And then the customer acquisition piece, like the way Flexport works is you place orders to your factory through Flexport, and so you can actually think of it like you place the order, you bought the goods. It's like a buy now, pay later for global trade. And then on the collections piece, under ancient maritime law, I think from like the 1500s, the the freight provider, the carrier, the common carrier, and we're considered a carrier, has first lien on the goods. You actually possess the title of the goods while it's in transit in international trade. So if you don't,
They literally have the legal title, and they literally have.
well, yes, there's also like what is the
Possession is 9/10 of the law.
like the term I believe was molon labe when the Spartans said, "Come and get them." Lay down your arms and say, "Come and get it." Like, I got your stuff. Like, well, let's talk. And so you have the goods. Sometimes you still have like. Again, I'm not a lending expert. We have all those guys on the team, but there's covenant. There's reason. There's sometimes if someone's ahead of you in this prep stack and whatever. But as a general principle, like physical possession is pretty valuable when it comes to collections. And then we've recently soft launched asset-backed lending. So we have a fulfillment business. So we do e-com fulfillment. We have about 5 million square feet of warehousing around the United States for e-com companies, D2C. And for those companies where we actually have physical possession in our warehouses, not just like transmitting in containers across the world, but like, hey, the goods are here. And I'm very bullish on that because I think from a collection standpoint, we're integrated already with their website, their Amazon channels, e-com marketplaces, etc. So, if the company defaults, like, I just keep selling the stuff as what it is on the internet, through the existing channels. I'll just flip it from their Amazon account to mine.
The best part is you have good collections. People will never want to be in that position, so you probably don't even have to use it.
We haven't had to use that piece. I think it's the idea of that, though, is if it lowers my risk, it should lower my cost of capital. I should be able to lend to you at a lower rate. It's just a win-win. It's not like, I'm going to take advantage of the company. It's more like, okay, cool. This is something that helps the lender.
Yeah.
Therefore,
they want speed of certain. To your point, like one of the big things is they just need the money quickly, reliably, and even if it's a higher interest rate, that's okay because these are usually pretty short duration.
Yeah, they're be short duration. Now, the asset-backed lending is the idea is like, hey, now we can do longer duration because there's more collateral here. But the core original product is kind of a maritime lien wallet, and banks don't want to find it because of that law that the forwarder has first possession, the carrier. The banks don't really want to lend against the inventory on the water. Yeah. Because, it's like way less certain that they're actually going to be able to collect it. And so there's that's part of the gap that we fail. And there's actually a really interesting angle in Flexport Capital and international payments that, you're paying this vendor overseas and we'll pay them for them in the Flexport Capital scenario for Flexport Capital customers, and you pay us back later. But the vendor also is there's an opportunity there for the supplier to go, hey, what if you've agreed to 30-day payment terms or 90 days to pay your factory, but you can go to the factory and say, hey, I'll pay you 99% today instead of in 90 days or 30 days, whatever the interest rate needs to work out to, and then that's just like you're lending twice, but it's the same risk. I'm not taking extra risk on that loan because the risk is that, I don't pay you. Well, like it's me, I'm going to pay you. I still have risk that this guy doesn't pay me back, but I don't have double risk. So I think there's really interesting angles there. We haven't really made that part work because it turns out, especially in China, but in other countries, these guys get like 0% interest financing anyways on their POs.
State-owned banks finance a lot of this.
Yes. And so it's sort of correct in parts of what Trump is saying about the level playing field in global trade. There's like a lot of subsidies for export for these companies that like, hey, they actually do have a huge, American companies can't get 0% financing.
Yeah. Can you give us a sense of the scale of that business, how it's grown over time? And also like, if you look at like a Toast or other companies, payment processing, lending, it's like 30-40% of their revenue. So like, how do you think about like fintech products as part of the overall P&L stack?
Yeah. It's pretty small. It's about, I think we have about a $200 million books. It's like it needs to be a lot bigger to be interesting.
Nations are north of $1 billion because you churn through the book.
Yeah.
Quickly, but
that's probably true. Yeah. There's a fair amount of turnover on that, but the outstanding amount of time, people tend to, it's more like a line. They draw it down, they use it, they go back, they go up and down throughout the year. It's a seasonality. There's a lot of seasonality in these kind of businesses. It needs to be a lot bigger to be interesting for our P&L. I think it's very interesting strategically. very interesting for investors to tell the story, the option value, the upside value of that. For it really, it obviously improves retention of customers that use it. But for it to really like materially drive Flexport's P&L, it needs to be at least 10 times bigger. We
Still early, but has other.
It's early. It's been around for a long time. It's been one of those things where you're like, man, we got to be pretty cautious here. In the very beginning was our own balance sheet.
Worst things to do is scale lending business too fast.
Yeah. And exactly. And we've done that. We've had some ups and downs. Like our default rates have been pretty good, but like not as good as they should be because we were too aggressive at times. But like overall, it's a very healthy portfolio. We've recently, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it publicly, but we have third-party capital with like a really well-known, famous global institution. I think we haven't announced who it is yet, but so it's not. We've got some balance sheet in there, like kind of
talked about raising third-party capital before.
Yeah, exactly. We've had third-party in there for a while. We just brought in a new partner on it. We'll probably announce that soon. So then
there's a lot of debt capital available these days in the form of private credit and large institutions.
I'm learning more and more about like private credit. It's kind of hot right now. And I don't think any of them have our fundamental kind of core advantages there with all that said.
They need people for distribution to have the data, the access,
right?
All of those things.
And we move almost probably mid $40 billion worth of goods every year.
Yeah.
And we're financing, less than a bill. And so and all of that inventory, it won't all be financeable by Flexport Capital in its current form. The interest rates are too high, in my opinion. Like it needs a lot of that stuff. If you're shipping for some big company, their cost of capital is much lower than what we're able to offer. But like all of it's getting financed by somebody. Like like low rate inventory financing is like all inventory in the world gets financed. Like you're not using equity book capital for that. Like it's a classic case for financing. So, but in our current form, at our current cost of capital is probably too expensive. But I think there's all kinds of flavors. As you scale it, that cost will come down. As you bring in new partners, maybe we don't even need to be, maybe it becomes more of a marketplace where you're just like connecting and taking a small service fee or something. I mean, there's a million ways to structure the thing. So
one thing I want to ask you about on the index side of things too is stablecoins. Has that been interesting to you guys? Not interesting? Too early to tell?
It's fascinating to me I'm studying it and I'm trying to learn a lot about it. The interesting thing for us is, I mean, when I first heard about stablecoins, I was like, what's the point of this? I thought crypto was supposed to be like, get rich quick. If it doesn't go up, like, I have no interest. That's not interesting. But the more I spent time with Coinbase folks and others, especially it's quite interesting in Forex. We do just internally for Flexport alone, we do $1 billion a year of Forex. That doesn't count what our customers are paying their factories. So internally, we have $1 billion of internal foreign exchange, just for like, hey, our revenue internationally, moving money between entities and accounts and paying our vendors and stuff. So there's right there. What I'm told, that we pay about 50 bips for foreign exchange fee. So, and I think stablecoins can probably get that down a little bit. TBD, like we haven't started using that yet, but so there's some use case internally where I'm like, if it saved me $500,000 a year, like for sure I'm going to do it. Second is, and much more interesting is our customers are wiring about $40 billion a year and hopefully, growing that 10x over the next few years, next decade. And so that's very, very interesting if you could, and I don't think they're not at our scale. So they're not paying 0.5% in foreign exchange. They might be paying 1 or 1.5 or 2%. And so the foreign exchange fee is interesting to save them money. More reason that logistics companies and payments goes hand in hand is, again, back to that, like, hey, inventory is capital that's moving. But the PO, when you buy goods, your payment terms of when do you owe money is always, the clock starts from your logistics data. The clock starts when you either pick it up or deliver it. And over 50% of purchase orders are split when they're delivered. So the whole PO doesn't travel together. Part of it goes on one shipment and another part comes at a later date. And so your logistics data is always going to be the source of truth for your accounts payable team for when do I owe the money. And so And then, so, the foreign exchange savings, sure, like they would really value that. But
It's a really interesting ledgering opportunities because that's one thing stablecoins and crypto is ledger. But yeah, it's kind of
or like, yeah, some smart contract stuff of like, hey, of all the, we exchange title every time.
automated reconciliation.
We there's a change of title that happens on every transaction that's international that we do, from the buyer to the seller, or seller to the buyer, and therefore you could develop today our release process doesn't need crypto like smart contracts in that form today. I mean, it's like it's fine to have a database that's centralized, because frankly you trust your guy with a forklift to load the container and load it with what he said.
Yeah.
So like you should also trust the database provider if you're going to trust that guy on a forklift. But still creating some rules-based automation that says, okay, when this happens, like all of the customs paperwork has been cleared, it's passed some quality inspection, cargo has actually arrived, then trigger the payment. There's some nice things there. So yeah, like I really want stable coins to be a big part of the business, and like we're going to launch a payments product at some point. But we haven't even started developing it yet.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming when we do so that stable coins will be part of that somewhere.
Yeah, it's super. You talk to like experts in fintech, like the Carlson brothers, be like, it's a room temperature semiconductor. They're like super bullish, right? And then he talked to Jack Zhang, who's like at Air Odds. They tried to buy for $2 billion a while ago. And Jack's like, I actually do all this money movement. Stablecoins are useless. I can get like 2 bips on FX.
Yeah, exactly.
To a practitioner like you, and you're like, well, actually, maybe it's not Brex. Maybe it's.
I would trust Jack way above me. I'm probably partnering with AirWallex is like an easier way for us to do payments. I mean, I don't know. It seems very interesting. It's something we're studying. By the way, the reversibility of the regular payments is kind of a feature, not a bug too. Like if you pay the wrong factory $100,000, like it'd be nice to be able to undo that if it was fraud. And with stable coins, I think your money's gone. So
there's some interesting.
I'm not that expert though. I'm very curious and learning and like reading, and ChatGPT is teaching me almost everything I know about stable coins right now. So
one thing I wanted to ask you about too is go-to-market and marketing. And I thought we could start with this guy right here, because it turns out I didn't know this. We just put this up here. This was your most effective marketing campaign.
I don't know about overall market, but direct mail, we sent that Molotov airplane to like a whole bunch of air freight buyers. As like it's just like the actual airplane, we sent them a toy and tons of them with a brochure about our air freight services. And I think we closed like $30 million off of the toy airplane. So
that's pretty good ROI. I mean, people are always shocked in fintech, consumer fintech, that direct mail can work quite well sometimes.
I think Capital One is like the biggest direct mail company on earth, right? It's marketing is my marketing. What works in general is the irrational ideas. This is one of my core theses, and actually maybe in all of business. If you're too logical, then other people probably already came up with that idea, because everyone's been trained to be logical, like our whole school system and professional career. No one ever got fired for being too logical. You get fired for being crazy. Therefore, all the logical ideas have already been tried.
You do something like start a supply chain company, because
all the logical ideas have been tried, and therefore there's no arb in that. Like, and most illogical ideas are bad. But if you can find that Venn diagram of like something that's logical and good, that's where all the money to be made in the world is. Like, no one's tried that. And so, sending people a toy airplane. Direct mail has a lot of room for that. Of like, you can kind of surprise somebody with something they weren't expecting. And get them to respond. And direct mail is the original performance marketing, right? Like, which can be logical, like lots of math that you can apply to it, conversion rate optimization, all these things. Like that all started in direct mail, not in SEO and SEM.
One question I wanted to ask you too, because it's something you talked about before. You view yourself as very good at marketing, but then you said one of the downsides of that is your marketing organization is maybe not as strong as it should be because you insert yourself. So how do you think about like, and I think it's more a general question too, like if you're a founder and you're really deep in one domain, how do you also like empower and build those organizations?
I wouldn't, I think our marketing team is great. We've had, but I think they'll probably tell you, I also can send them doing crazy, but maybe, I don't know. I think our marketing team likes me, the fact that I love marketing and like to have a lot of ideas for it. But, not all my ideas are logical. And so And a lot, like I said, not all most illogical ideas are bad ideas. So I make them try some stuff that's like, oh, that didn't work.
We tried,
But it was, currently I should say finally, we've had good marketing for a long time, but there were periods of Flexport's history where I was like not letting go and doing too much of the marketing myself and not hiring anybody. We didn't have anyone in marketing for many years. And that used to think that made you cool. Like, we don't have marketing, we still grow. Like, no, you should have marketing. Like, took me too long to learn that lesson and get the best team in place. But I think B2B marketing, it's easy to underinvest in it. It's actually a huge advantage that really profitable companies have too. For that famous, what's the famous line? Like, half my marketing doesn't work, but I don't know which half or something. If you're really, really profitable, you can do a lot more things that are hard to measure and don't work. When you're not profitable and every dollar you need to make sure there's return, then it's harder to try stuff. So like all the brand we do very, very little, almost no brand marketing, and nothing that costs money anyways. Yeah. And yet brands are the most valuable things on earth, basically. Apple is, sure, they make great products, but like, I'm not convinced it's much better than the other ones. It's just that they have the best brand at this point. And so, but you can't just like put money behind a brand campaign unless you're like,
when you're a startup, it's pretty hard.
Gushing cash. When you're gushing cash, you should definitely invest in brand marketing.
The banks, own stadium naming rights. SoFi did that, but that was like, way down.
But I think they put $400 million into that deal of over 20 years. So, which is now looking like a great investment, by the way. I mean, they're hosting the Super Bowl. They're going to have the World Cup there next year. The Olympics is going to be at SoFi Stadium.
It's pretty, it looks crazy, but then like a lot of times the defensibility does come from brand at scale. Terrible idea.
And SoFi is a consumer brand, so it's more clear. But you have, Oracle Arena. If you go, it's Oracle, I think Oracle Arena, right? It's not, or Oracle Park. Sorry, that's Oracle Park is where the San Francisco Giants play over there. And it's, sure, like there's some consumer branding element, but that's not what Oracle's after. If you go upstairs where the suites are, like half of all the suites in Oracle Park are Oracle for their sales guys to take their customers to a baseball game. And so that's the other thing that really works in B2B is events. Yeah. Spend time with your customer.
We're diving into some of the tariff stuff that's going on specifically. So let's start with the executive order around de minimis tariff. I mean, that exclusion, I think, goes into effect August 29th. So what is that? How does it impact your customers?
So de minimis is this very strange rule, which is going away, which allows you as a brand to import goods. And if they're going directly to your end consumer, not pay any tariffs at all. And it was most famously used by like big Chinese e-com companies who became just absolutely massive. And they're air freighting the cargo in.
And these de minimis shipments have been a big part of the Flexport business.
Not a huge part of the Flexport business, but we do a fair amount of our air freight business is de minimis, where we'll fly air freight in for these companies and many others, but fly it in, hand it off. We'll clear the customs, hand it off to the last mile provider who then delivers to your door. So yeah, we've been in that chain. But so that's the most famous use case. But actually what a lot of people don't realize is something like 30 or 40% of all the top e-com brands are using it and fulfilling out of Mexico, Tijuana, some in Canada too. And then that's different. They're using ocean freight. We'll bring it over for them and then truck it down to Mexico. Yeah. But we don't have fulfillment centers in Mexico. Our team years ago wanted to build that. And I was like, I think this law is going to go away. I don't want to build de minimis, build against a reg. And so I got lucky on that, right? Was right on that. Yeah. So Trump has just shut it down. The administration just closed it down back in May for goods made in China. And that's 70% of all the de minimis shipments. And like you said, August 29th, is that right?
The numbers your team gave me too, were I think they're 1.4 billion de minimis shipments in 2024, so about 4 million a day. So this is a lot of
4 million a day. Yeah, it's
high value products usually.
It has to be less than 800, but like e-com, it's always less than 800 if you're buying stuff online mostly. It wouldn't work for an Apple laptop, but it would work for I don't know what's their cheaper product these days. The Apple TV, maybe, I don't know. But to give you a sense of that growth, a decade ago, there were 100,000 de minimis entries per day, and it scaled to 4 million last year per day. So just massive amount of packages. getting delivered. And so they've closed that down. And they did it with very little warning. We got 30 days notice. It came out last week, depending on when we air this show, but it came out on the kind of early end of July or beginning of August. And so you got 30 days notice to move your fulfillment center out of Mexico into the United States, set up a new warehouse with all your cargo, link it up to your Shopify site, your marketplaces, and go live. We're right in the middle right now of like a crazy scramble by a lot of brands to really ensure business continuity. I mean, you can't just like stop selling. Yeah. So we've been helping a lot of companies with that. We have, like I said, 5 million square feet of fulfillment center space. We had last year a lot of empty space in the buildings. And then this year we've been filling it up. We're about to go over 100% capacity and investing vertically in the buildings to be able to help more companies.
Pretty sad because holidays are not that far away.
Yeah, I mean, it's doable. We're going to get these people in a good place, but if they had done this like in October, man, it would be death. It's for a lot of companies. Yeah. So we'll see. It's I'm sort of neutral on that. I have to be a little neutral. A lot of these customers, they're pissed. Like this was the thing that was saving them millions of dollars. And I'm just like anti-tariffs and taxes in all their forms. So, I was pro de minimis, somewhat neutral because it's also just an insane rule. Yeah. That says,
this is a question I have for you too, running a business where it really interacts with like federal policy. What do you do? Do you just sit back and you just kind of, like, look, we're not going to try and change policy. Do you hire a bunch of folks to go and try to, do lobbying? This administration, that probably, I don't know. Like, how do you think?
I don't think lobbying would help with this administration. I think going direct actually works with this administration. If you go down and meet people and talk to them, you can definitely learn what they're thinking, how they're talking, and they're pretty open door. Like they're very business friendly. They want to help businesses. I mean, the tariffs aren't business friendly, but they'll talk to you about it. So I've done a lot of that, trying to observe, go to DC more. I'm from DC, but I never had a reason to go there for business until this year, basically. Yep. The main thing we do is observe. I haven't had like,
I guess it's a great point. You can't at least show up.
Observing can help you a lot. You can make predictions. Like we had suspicions on a lot of these things because we're just listening to people in DC, whether it's senators or members, even cabinet level folks will talk to you. So, I mean, they'll talk to me anyways. They'll talk to a surprising number of brands. Like a lot of our apparel brands, they're super impacted by this. They're going down there. They're getting anything done. I don't know, but they're learning, The one that people would really like to change, and maybe I would consider lobbying on, is what's called a non-resident importer. So you can import goods into the United States even without having an entity in the United States at all, just as a foreign company. And it's kind of crazy because then if they cheat on customs can't go to China to enforce the rule.
Oh, interesting.
So, so that what they'll do is set up a shell company in China, import it, sell it on Amazon. 62% of all Amazon sellers are these companies. They get caught lying about the valuation or the classification or the country of origin of the goods to lower their duty rate, which gives them a huge competitive advantage. When they get caught, that entity can't import anymore, but they just create a new one. Yeah. And they get to keep their Amazon seller account. Yeah. And with all their reviews of the product and just keep going. I mean, it's just a crazy situation. This one I feel very comfortable like advocating against. Everybody hates this other than the Chinese e-com sellers, but we don't really work with them much. So whereas de minimis, I'm like, if I come out strongly opposed, half my customers will hate me. If I come out strongly for, half the customers hate me. So I'm pro de minimis. I think they should keep it only because I don't like tariffs. That'd be my standpoint. And de minimis are a loophole.
Trade is complicated. There are things that should be changed, but the instrument we're using is pretty blunt and doing a lot of damage. I thought maybe you could share just a lens into some of the unintended consequences of like how you've seen some businesses have to shut down as a result of things going on in ways that are slightly surprising.
I haven't seen like shutdowns that we've seen are probably like, hey, you were probably not having a great business in the first place, and maybe that was the proximate cause, but not the ultimate one. But I have seen a lot of businesses have to change decisions in ways that are counter to what the administration's stated goals are. Their goal is to re-industrialize, bring manufacturing back, increase employment and stuff. I mean, de minimis does that, by the way. De minimis, more warehousing jobs in the U.S. instead of in Mexico. So that seems like a positive at least from their own stated goals perspective. Yes, for sure. But But the other one of manufacturing, if you put tariffs in place, like the worst example, which I won't show the company name, but a company that manufactures bicycles in the United States. Like, yeah, we still had that. They've done that for the last decade. They are probably going to shift manufacturing offshore because of the tariffs, because they made an exemption for finished bicycles being imported, but not for the components. So if they manufacture offshore, they don't have to pay any tariffs. But if they import components and manufacture them here, they do. And this is like why central planning is so hard. Because there's no way that was the policy design when they said, hey, we'll just let bicycles come in. They probably didn't think that there's a bicycle factory in the U.S. And that kind of, many other examples are like buying equipment for manufacturing all of a sudden became too expensive because you have to pay the duty on the equipment. Buying components, if you're going to export the goods, especially, you don't want to pay all these duties on the components and then you export. You're better off just importing to Mexico and then you won't pay any duties on those components and you can keep exporting to the world. So I think the tariffs, you got to judge policies by their result, not by their intention. I agree with most of the intentions here of the tariffs. Like, I think it'd be great to do more manufacturing in the U.S. And even like, I'm not smart enough to understand, like, you got to get government revenue from somewhere. So is it better from income tax or tariffs? Like, I don't know, like you got to fund the government somehow. But the actual result has been less. I've seen more negative impact on manufacturing in the U.S. than I have positive. So it's kind of not working.
Kind of tough. And it's also hard as everything changes so frequently. It's hard to even know what the steady state is.
That's the biggest problem, actually. These companies need certainty. They need a mix of plans, and they can't.
Because you need, time to plan. I want to jump into just some kind of fun question towards the end and maybe start off with just some founder advice or just things you found helpful. So the first one would be like, what is your favorite tech memo and why?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the famous one is the Bezos API memo. I'm wondering if there's going to be, I asked my team recently if I need to create like a MCP memo for the use of AI and properly making all of our data and systems available through chat. They said, not yet, probably not going to add value, but I think there's going to be a moment where you need to really lean hard into AI and make everything that you do AI first. I haven't seen that memo. Actually, maybe Toby actually put out Toby from Shopify, our Shopify owns 20% of Flexport, a great partner for us. And he put out a really, I think, important memo about the use of AI. It was less specific, like you must do this the way the API memo in terms of the technology that you build, but it was very much like you've got to be AI first in all your work, all your workflows. Don't hire anybody until you can show how AI can't do this job, et cetera. Those are a few.
Yeah, that's super helpful. You don't have to tell people exactly what they do, but you can put it in your hiring, you can put it in your performance reviews, and then you can just make it
and it's like,
and then what is your number one bit of founder advice overall, especially for young founders?
Yeah, I mean, the number one piece of advice is like stay alive, lower your personal burn rate. It's all Paul Graham stuff, right? Be ramen profitable as quickly as you can. It's probably something. Yeah, it depends on your stage. If you're like just getting started, pay off your student debt. Don't take student debt. Debt sucks. Student debt, you can't discharge it in bankruptcy, and the interest rates are crazy high. Stay out of debt. Keep your burn rate low. Further along, I think the best advice is like I've raised a lot more money than anybody, so almost anybody. Don't try to raising money is the most risky thing you can do for a company. Like, if failed fundraise is almost by definition the death of a company, and every founder likes themselves more. Every human likes themselves more than other people like them. And founders are especially guilty of this. They think their company's hot. Everybody's going to love this. They're in love with their idea, their team that they're doing. They see the vision. Investors will never see your stuff and like it as much as you will. And it's so risky to run into reality, and your company can die. So like, you're so much better off avoiding fundraising by keeping your burn rate low, making money. And when you do need to fundraise, in an ideal world, you would be able to do that from people who already love you, your existing investors, who are already here at the table, have gotten to know you, trust you, understand your stuff at a level that no one's going to be able to do during like some 1 week competitive auction process you try to put together.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of founders like very naively approach fundraising like it's some kind of like, I'm going to go out and conquer the world and get 10 people to bid on my thing and choose the top one. And you're like, it's so risky. So yeah, try to avoid that.
Yep. Loved your Halloween setup for 2024. What was it? And can you share if you have any ideas for what might be going on?
Oh, it's around the corner. I'll show you.
Get some B-roll of
You
it.
get some B-roll of it. My wife gets all the credit for that. And no, that was older than 24. It was back in 2022, maybe. It was that year when the ship, the Ever Given, got stuck in the Suez Canal. So I took my wife, she got a guy on Craigslist to actually make it for us, made a cardboard, took like our radio flyer wagon for my daughter, gave her like a little ship captain's hat and made a model of Ever Given cargo container ship that got stuck. And we pulled her around a Halloween street fair and blocked off the road with it.
That's great. How are you going to top that? Anything for 2025?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet. I was like a UPS mailman. I'll try to do something logistics themed probably.
Well, I think AGI or ASI is not here because I asked ChatGPT for recommendations for you, and they're all garbage.
For Halloween?
Yeah, none of them were interested.
Maybe I get Penguin.
So I think we've got some time before AI takes over. It could be a couple of months. Maybe by Halloween, 05 will give you some great ideas for that. Awesome. Well, this has been super fun. Thanks for coming on. Learned a lot, and maybe we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, my pleasure.